So this video I've had planned for quite some time now. I didn't know when I was going to make it, but I knew it needed to be made. And when it comes to these type of videos, I don't like complaining about Call of Duty. I like playing Call of Duty, having a good time playing it with friends, but it seems like with Black Ops 4, it's harder this year than any year before. And with today's update, I thought this was a good opportunity to actually talk about. Because you see, with today's update, nothing new was actually added. It was just more microtransactions, and more of what we can expect from Black Ops 4 is microtransactions. It seems like every single update they might add one new thing, but 15 new microtransactions. And to me, at this point, it is getting extremely frustrating. So thought we would talk about today the biggest mistake revolving around Black Ops 4, which to me just comes down to the amount of lies that have been told to us. And if they're not lies, they're just vague truths that we have to question what is actually going on in this game that we want to play. We want it to be good, but the lies are really what interrupt it. So where I think we should begin is with games as a service, because when this game was originally launched, it was launched as a game that would follow the games as a service model, which in itself is a little bit of a lie. You see, games as a service basically comes down to a game always being online. If we want to go into depth with the legal definition of it, it has to be that, because technically to make it a service, the company has to be in control of the product that you are getting. And with that, the only way for them to fully control it is if it's always online. Now, Black Ops 4 is not an always online game. If you're offline, you can do things such as playing zombies offline or private matches within multiplayer. I know it's not much, and 90% of Black Ops 4 is always online, but you do have to take that with a grain of salt. So legally speaking, this game is not a games as a service game. However, they do like to follow a similar model. And the way I personally look at games as a service is it comes down to the fact that when the game is launched, that is not your final product. Throughout the year, it'll get updated, changed, and added to kind of go into its final form, if you will. Now, I know it wasn't the first game ever to do this, but personally, the first game that I was exposed to that did this was World of Warcraft. And they did it a little bit different because they actually charged a subscription fee to their actual game. It's one of the few games that have ever really done this super successfully. And as far as it goes, that system kind of makes sense to me. You pay for the game, you pay for the subscription, and then from then on in, it is up to them to update it, change the game, and make it better. And that's what they did. They didn't rely on microtransactions like Call of Duty does. Now, as games progressed, people didn't want to pay a subscription fee, especially for something like Call of Duty, a game that gets renewed every year as the new Call of Duty. The way that they got around this is by introducing microtransactions. Instead of paying for a subscription fee, you then paid for microtransactions, and then in turn, they could pay their employees to keep their game updated, change things, add new game modes, add new weapons, that kind of thing. The problem is that this got really out of control, because instead of actually adding new content to the game, they now just add new microtransactions, and then that is more money in their pocket. Now, games as a service really gets a bad rap. A lot of games screw the pooch super hard. A perfect example of this is Fallout 76. The launch of that game and still the current state of that game are in complete shambles, and hence games as a service kind of being shit on. But I do think there are some games that do it decently well. One example is Destiny. I don't know if a lot of you have played it, but as far as this game goes, it kind of follows that games as a service model. The game is launched, and throughout time, it's patched, updated, new missions are added to it, new events are added to it, new weapons are added to it, and then it kind of becomes that final form that we talked about before. Another example is The Division, or The Division 2, does the same kind of thing. Now, both of these games do have microtransactions, but in very few circumstances, those microtransactions actually affect the gameplay of that game. The updates to the game are actually focused on adding content and adding new features to the game to add more longevity and more playability, hence more people playing the game for a longer period of time. Once again, going back to Black Ops 4, this is when they kind of stepped on that bee's nest, because as far as this game goes, yes, they do update it, and in fact, when I was talking on Twitter the other day about this game, someone replied saying, "But Inkslasher, this is the most updated Call of Duty game to date," and technically, you are correct. The problem is as we just spoke about, most of those updates aren't actually new content. They are new microtransactions. Even when they put in a new operation to the game, whether that's Grand Heist, Spectre Rising, or whatever, most of the new content is microtransactions. Yes, they update the Blackout map. Yes, they add a new specialist character, But other than that, everything is just microtransactions. Microtransactions are not content, they are extras. Now, going back to what we talked about at the very beginning, when I said the fact that when Call of Duty Black Ops 4 launched, they went with the games as a service model. And they've been doing this for years, where at the beginning of the launch, the game isn't really complete. It needs to be added to, updated, changed, and then it kind of reaches that final form. The problem is to me, the state of Black Ops 4 doesn't feel like it's even there yet, and we're 2 months away from another Call of Duty game actually being launched. Now, I think there's outside factors affecting that, as we're going to talk about throughout this video, but I think that is a real problem with Black Ops 4. So remember how I mentioned the lies that have been told to us? Well, here we move into the first one. So about a week after the launch of Black Ops 4, they announced the new Black Market and Contraband stream system. This is very similar to Fortnite's Battle Pass system, where you could play the game, level this up, and unlock various pieces of equipment. On top of that, there would be a black market where you could buy individual items. Basically, you pay money for what you want. And people were not over the moon about this system, but they were fine with it. You could play the game and unlock the things you wanted. Now, as the game moved on and they started to make less and less money from this, they decided, you know what, everything we said, let's throw that to the wayside, let's put supply drops back in the game. And there's no shadow of a doubt, this is absolutely makes them more money, but they also lied to us about what they were adding. I mean, technically it's not a direct lie, but they were intentionally vague, and this vagueness is something we can see repeated over and over again with not just Black Ops 4, but all Call of Duty games. You see, when a Call of Duty game is launched, we never know what is coming afterwards. Generally speaking, there's a season pass, so we know that they're going to add this many maps, but other than that, we don't know the game modes, we don't know when they're adding things, there's no time restraint or expectation revolving around the actual game. And Black Ops 4 is a huge example of this, because they said it was going to be the most updated Call of Duty game ever, they were going to stay on top of content and keep us interested in the game. What ended up happening behind the scenes is that Sledgehammer got kicked off of the next Call of Duty game, and now Treyarch is forced to work on Black Ops 5, or whatever they're going to call it. Which means their focus can no longer be on Black Ops 4, but is forced to Black Ops 5, which means the support for Black Ops 4 is out the window. And technically, they never promised us anything, because they're vague about everything, and because of that, they can just say, oh, well, the game's done now, that's all the content we have. A perfect example of this is the specialist characters. So as we know, with every single event that's been added into the game, they have released a new specialist character. At this point right now, there are 14 specialist characters in the game. And I bet you're thinking in the next event at the end of September, we are going to be getting a new specialist character. Well, if I'm a betting man, I would put money that that 15th specialist character is never going to come out. Because once again, everyone who is currently working at Treyarch has switched their focus to Black Ops 5. There is no longer any necessity for them to work on Black Ops 4. Yet, they keep pumping out microtransactions because it's gonna make them money. Another great example of this is before the launch of Black Ops 4, David Vonderhaar was interviewed by Game Informer, and one of the questions he was asked is how would characters be unlocked within Blackout? His answer was this.
So the intent is the beta would have every character that's going to be in the game.
Gotcha.
That's the spirit. It's not trying to hide, we're not holding characters back for the game.
Right.
It's a beta, you need to put the content in.
So you unlock new characters by doing character-specific quests?
Missions for characters and progression of the game.
What about spending hundreds of dollars on microtransactions to unlock these characters, David? You never mentioned that one, did you?
Clothing and other cosmetic items for my character?
No.
Why not?
Not inside the world.
So yeah, there's none of that within Blackout, but on top of that, the biggest of all, I think, has to go out to factions. So before the launch of Black Ops 4 at San Diego Comic-Con, they announced factions, a new game mode in zombies in Black Ops 4. There is still no factions within Black Ops 4. That one is the only one out of this entire video that is just straight up a blatant lie. And then finally, the last one, this is the biggest one to me because I mainly play multiplayer, is weapons. Specifically, weapons in supply drops. For, I think, 4 games now, Call of Duty has come out, and then around December, January, February, they put supply drops or reserves into the game. And when they do, they say, guys, don't worry, it's cosmetic items only. That's the only thing that is going to be in these drops. And a couple months later, weapons come out in drops. Year after year after year. And once again, they can do this because at the launch of the game, before the game comes out, they never say what they're doing for microtransactions, whether or not supply drops are going to be in the game, and then they lie about weapons going to be in the supply drops every single time. And the point I'm getting at in this video is you're going to notice over the next couple of months that more and more news comes out about Modern Warfare. More and more and more. The one thing that they will not talk about is microtransactions. And if they do, they'll just be something little. Like, yeah, they'll be in the game. Yeah, they'll be there. You don't have to worry about those. They will not say what they are, how much they're going to cost, whether or not supply drops are going to be in there, if there is supply drops, whether or not there's going to be weapons in there, how weapons will be earnable if they are DLC weapons. They will not mention any of that until after the launch of the game, until after the majority of people have already spent their money and bought it. I think it should be common practice that they have to give us this information before the game comes out. But it's not. There's no law against that. They're not breaking any laws by doing that. It's just the way games are these days, and it's unfortunate. But I just wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get it out there. I wanted to get your opinions on it, so let me know what you think down in the comments. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it wasn't too negative. I tried to stay as positive as possible, but it's just kind of a negative topic. So if you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. And if you like what you see here and want to stay updated on all my videos, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you have notifications on. And until next time, guys, peace out.
We are reaching for the stars, but